Rising, that is not a number that anyone wants to see going up. But another number also went up in the last day, and that is the amount of tests that were conducted in the state of Florida. Just another record shattered. Florida seeing a record-breaking 15,300 new coronavirus cases Sunday, shattering past single-day records. State Health Department data shows 45 more COVID deaths statewide and 69,700 COVID cases since this time last week. The governor's spokeswoman pointing out on Twitter that the positivity rate has declined for the third day in a row to 11.25%, and that a record 142,981 tests were conducted. Mayor Carlos Jimenez, leader of the state's hardest-hit county, rolled back some reopenings and added new restrictions, but told our Glenna Milberg on This Week in South Florida that the real key to tamping down spread, personal responsibility.
At the end of the day, it's going to be you and I and everybody else in this community that has to have a sense of civic duty.
COVID cases in Dade rose by more than 3,500. In Broward, the number rose by 1,700. County Mayor Dale Holness says cities in Broward are finally on the same page.
And at the onset, when we're shutting down, there was some disjointedness, but the persistence of having these meetings and having everyone's voice heard have worked pretty well for us in Broward County.
And right now, the average age of those testing positive for coronavirus is 38. Reporting live outside the health department in Miami, Leanne Morejon, Local 10 News.
Leanne, thank you. On the national front, at least a dozen states reporting a record number of new cases, the death toll reaching another grim milestone. The death toll here in the U.S. surpassing a grim milestone. More than 135,000 people have died from coronavirus. A wave of upsetting records are being set in several states. In Texas, both cases and hospitalizations topping 10,000 on Saturday. Military medical teams being deployed to Houston, the same teams that helped overwhelmed hospitals in the Northeast just a few months ago.
We have to acknowledge the fact that the numbers are continuing to rise.
Arizona, one of 7 states setting daily death toll records over the last week.
Once you're kind of driving home and thinking about it, you're just like, wow, that was a lot of death and dying that we saw.
89% of Arizona's ICUs at capacity. The state struggling to keep up with the demand for testing. Thousands waiting weeks for results from backlogged labs. But the nation's testing center says the country is testing enough to find the outbreaks.
We think we have enough tests today to identify where the hot spots are.
Michigan health officials say this crowded 4th of July party has led to several positive tests. Westfield, New Jersey, tracking a cluster of cases linked to young people attending parties. And a new uptick in upstate New York linked to travel to Georgia. Louisiana, a hot spot. A few months ago, seeing a resurgence. The governor mandated...
We've been reporting over the last few days are going to get any better over the next couple of weeks.
The president wearing a mask for the first time on Saturday during a visit to Walter Reed Medical Center. His administration insisting kids return to school despite the growing number of COVID-19 cases.
We're going to be putting a lot of pressure on open your schools in the fall.
The president calling the current CDC guidelines for reopening schools very tough. Those guidelines calling for face coverings and desks 6 feet apart. The CDC says without mitigation measures, full-size in-person classes pose the highest risk for spread. And the U.S. Surgeon General says if we want to turn this thing around, we all need to practice that social distancing, wear a mask, and wash our hands. Well, over to this crime alert now. Police